I'm Jansen.
And I'm Sean.
I'm Sky.
And this is the weekly pop-up podcast where we talk about all things pop culture. Excuse me, laughing. Sean had a very interesting intro there. I loved it. I love the intensity. It matches what we're talking about today. And to talk about our subjects today, we actually have a guest today, Real One. What's up, my man?
First time, long time. Excited to be here.
I appreciate it. I do believe he is an avid listener because he texts me almost every week saying about the subject. So I'm assuming he listened to part of it. I really appreciate it. And now you have, and we'll do plugs at the end as well, but you also have a podcast kind of similar in nature. Tell us the name of that. Tell us about it. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, podcast is called Real Connections, REEL Connections. Just talking with folks about why we love the movies we do, because I think there's a deeper reason behind it.
And I've listened to several of your episodes. You have different versions. You have like spotlight episodes where you key in on a specific movie, and then you kind of have some just bigger overall topics. One recent one you did, and I don't mean to bring up your most controversial. It's just the last one I listened to was you guys broke down that Cuties movie. I know that got a lot of backlash or a lot of talk at least throughout the internet.
Oh, I think if you guys haven't seen Cuties, I highly recommend it. You will feel awkward. Just go into it knowing you will feel awkward, and you can enjoy the movie.
Now, I heard that, what we're seeing online is not what the movie is, right?
That's completely true.
Yeah.
From what I know and from what Real One, had said on his podcast, and from what I've read from the director, is what people are highlighting are the exact problems that the director sees in our culture, which is like why she kind of chose to highlight them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll definitely have to give that a watch and go forward with that. But tonight, I believe we're talking real quick Emmys. We know it was a couple weeks ago, but we did a whole episode on it. We might as well mention it. And then we're going to get into kind of a spotlight type episode on I'm Thinking of Ending Things, the Charlie Kaufman movie, which I'm sure we all have a lot of thoughts on because
lots of thoughts.
A thought-provoking movie.
Yeah. And I do just want to jump in. Happy podcast day.
Happy International Podcast Day, guys.
Look at us.
Happy
Look at us.
International Podcast Day.
There's a date just for us.
Just for us. It's also my anniversary, so I'm just going to put that out there.
Congratulations.
Wife, I love you.
Look at how you're spending your night.
We're
so honored.
I cooked her some steaks earlier, okay? So, we did what we were supposed to. We took some nice family pics. It was nice. I got home on time. That was nice. At 4:30, more work got put on my plate, and I said, "Oh my God!" I told her I was gonna be home on time. She texted me at like 4, like, "Are you good?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm great. I am set."
It will be
4:30 came.
Honey.
But enough, like you said, Sean. Enough shop talk. Let's get into it. The Emmys. What weird night.
Weird night.
Really, also weird timing to have it placed up against a Sunday Night Football, a very big game, if I recall.
Yeah, and if not, also basketball, I believe. So playoff basketball, Sunday Night Football, which never happens together anyways, and then the Emmys. So
I was definitely flipping back and forth. I saved most of my dedicated watching for the end. I know you, Sky, were watching the whole thing and texting us excited updates about one show in particular, if I recall.
So angry. I was so angry. Like, I've never seen Schitt's Creek, but they were just I think they got 7 in a row. It was 7. Like, they won the entire category. And I was so angry for, What We Do in the Shadows. I felt like they got robbed. And, just every single time. It's just,
I also think that it didn't end up taking 37 minutes of airtime for all 7 of the awards. It was just Schitt's Creek for the first 45 minutes of the broadcast. So really huge tune out potential for a show that I think is on comedy, not comedy. Is it Comedy Central?
No. What'd you say, Real One? Is it Comedy Central?
Started on Pop TV in the States. Now it will be on Comedy Central and on Netflix, the final season.
Yeah.
Right.
So Pop TV, which I don't know many people who are just I'm watching Pop TV tonight.
The Quibi of the cable broadcast.
That's it. That's the take.
Real one, and so maybe we'll just go through and just like kind of one big takeaway. Since you're our guest, Real one, what was your big takeaway from the night?
Schitt's Creek sweep. I didn't have it sweeping, winning all of that. I thought Eugene would win and Catherine O'Hare, and that was it. And comedy, but I just didn't see it sweeping. I was shocked by Zendaya.
I
That was
wasn't.
the big shock of the night for me.
Sky called that one. It was
He did.
Yeah.
I remember it, and I was like, "No, she's not gonna win. She's not gonna win."
Absolutely. Sky or Sean?
I was really happy for Zendaya. Gosh, I think she's really going to be great. She's going to be so good. But I mean, I think I was trying to remember. It's been 2 weeks now, right? Watchmen did pretty well.
Yes.
And Succession
Yes.
did pretty well too, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like Succession and Schitt's Creek were the two shows, right?
Yeah, the two big ones for sure.
I feel like Succession is just, they're on such a roll. Every year they always receive a ton of Emmys. And I mean, that seems to be the show to watch right now. With Schitt's Creek ending, it seems like Succession is probably the number one show now.
I feel like you're definitely after like two segments of the population though. Like, I mean, you don't have to be, they don't have to be exclusive, but seem to me like two very different shows.
Oh, they're completely different. Yeah, for sure. But
I think the big takeaway for me was one, I dominated in the picks, so I was pretty happy about that, at least comparatively. So I was really, really excited about that. And then the big thing for me, yes, Zendaya was such a surprise. And then honestly, I was looking for his little monologue for like an hour yesterday on YouTube, and I could not find Sterling K. Brown's opening to the drama where he runs out and he's like, because I thought it was hilarious. I wanted to share it with people because I don't think enough people saw it. He runs out and he's like, "Man, thanks you so much. This is us. We really honored to win drama this year, blah, blah, blah." And he goes on for like 3 to 4 minutes. He's like, "Oh, we weren't even nominated. Oh, okay." And then I just thought it was hilarious. But I mean, I thought for what they had to do, I still have some questions like, how did they all get their Emmys? Did they send everyone an Emmy, and then when you won, you got to present it, and they just come and get the Emmys back? But for the scope of what you're trying to do, I thought they pulled it off pretty well.
Would you who do you think would be like the sole winner of the Emmys if you had to pick one? Just like the person who gained the most.
Dan Levy.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna say.
I mean, I just feel like if he wants to create something else, every studio in town is gonna be like, "Here, go ahead."
Yeah.
Or the Levy family. I mean, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he won big for sure. Schitt's Creek. I mean, I'll have to check it out. I've seen maybe like 2 episodes, and I think they're funny, but it's also just like not something that I would have sought out on my own. So, but now it's got all this cred, and I guess since it's gonna come to Netflix, I'm sure it'll be like top 10, whatever they
top
do
10 every day.
Yeah, for the thing. Just like the Fleabag got a huge bump last year after winning, so I'm sure it'll have a similar thing. But yeah, I mean, for my takeaways, surprised they could pull it off so well. Happy for Zendaya, happy for Regina King, and my man Mark Ruffalo. Yeah. So,
I have to watch that. I put that on my list. I was like, okay, I have to watch this movie.
Yeah, when I heard about it, I was like, ooh, I should watch it. And then when I saw him nominated, I was like, man, I forgot about that. I got to watch this. So
Succession's definitely like number 1 on my list. And I think Real One, you text me as you were listening to the podcast, and we're like, you have to watch. So that's definitely number 1.
Is peak TV. The first season is slow, in my opinion. The second season, it goes off. I think we all work in television, so we will get it. So good.
I can't wait. I'm definitely gonna watch it, and I hear that a lot. But I feel like a lot of the best shows are like slow in season 1, as they're like building the world, and then season 2 they like let their characters loose. Is it true that someone shits their bed in that show? Because I've heard that as a joke. Great, I'm in. That's where you count me in.
That's wild. Well, I think that was the Emmys. Again, overall, I thought it went pretty well. I'm glad we got to all experience it in these weird times. It brings back, even though it's a weird way of doing it, it's at least a little bit of normalcy.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, I can watch an award show and football and basketball. Like you said, Sean, can I get a little bit of everything? But I think now, since I think, again, it's going to be a talker because What a weird movie.
Yeah.
I'm not a good movie. I'm not saying anything, but a weird movie. I'm thinking of ending things again. Charlie Kaufman's film, based on a 2016 novel of the same name by, is it Ian? Just spelled weird. Ian Reed.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
sure. I
gonna
think that's
say
Ian.
Ian. And of course, it has Jesse Plemons, Jesse Buckley, Tony Collette, and David Thewlis, and that's really like at the heart of it. That's the cast, which is
Yeah.
wild to think about for
Yeah.
like a 2 hour and 10-minute movie. You got 4 people.
I know. I was expecting like 90 minutes, and when I saw like whatever 2 hour 10 minutes, 2 hour 12 minutes, I was like, man, this is because I don't know if you guys had done this, but when you had shared the trailer with us, Jansen, I looked up the book just to get like a brief synopsis of it, and I was like, how are they going to make that a movie? Because the book sounds weird, and when we'll talk about the narration and stuff, but I always feel like those are the hardest books to make movies when there's so much inner monologue character narration, because that's visually boring. So like, how do you make that fun to watch? And Kaufman did it, that's for sure. He made it interesting.
And so before we get into like any spoilers or anything, just like I like it explaining just the front of it. What you're seeing is it's very straightforward. Basically, the whole premise of the movie at the start of it is essentially a girl is thinking about possibly breaking up with her boyfriend, but literally the movie, the entire 2 hours and 10 minutes is a girl and a boy go to meet his parents. They're there and then they drive back. I mean, that like on the face of it, that is the movie. And
Yeah.
2 hours of that and you're like, wow, that sounds like the most boring movie ever. But the pacing and the weirdness and all of that really just take you through. And so now I think we'll have a real discussion about it. So that's kind of the synopsis. It gets much deeper than that. And so if you want to stop here, watch the movie and come back, that's fine. But this is going to be an official spoiler warning because we're going to get into it, because I can already see Real One's wheels turning over there. All right. I see it. I see Sky leaning back because he wants to get into it. So let's get into it. All right. We're starting. So Sky or Real One or Sean, any first impressions on the movie?
Let's have Real One go first, because
I
he's our guest.
agree. I agree.
He's the guest.
You don't have
First
to-
impressions.
Yeah.
My notes was I don't know what I'm watching, but I think I like it. Immediately, I love how it opens. You immediately meet the I think she was called the girl. Then you hear the monologue. I thought that was well put. I didn't know it was based on a book, so this makes more sense now. So Sean, thank you for telling me that. So now I get a little bit of how things flowed. Yeah, I just want to hear what y'all think before I get.
So I can start just because one, I watch almost everything with subtitles, and it helps a lot when you're doing things, because about halfway through, I'm not looking at who's saying something, and I don't even know if it named her at first, but about halfway through, I noticed it says the girl or the woman, and I was like, that is weird, like, because I know that he has said her name once or twice. I'm like, I don't remember exactly, but like I know he said it. But one thing that happened right near the start that honestly has stuck with me even today, and I watched this movie probably a month ago, was a quote that she said right off the bat, and I think it's directly from the book. And I'm like, it's one of the most interesting things I've ever heard of and thought of, because I've never thought of it. She said, quote, sometimes a thought is closer to truth, to reality than an action. You can say anything, you can do anything, but you can't fake a thought. I was like, that's so true, because a thought comes in your head and it's there, it's not going anywhere. And I was like, that's when I knew like this movie is going places that I'm not expecting. So that was I like that at least they got right into it and we're like, this is going to be a deep dive into like the human psyche.
I I I really like the beginning. And I'll mention this a couple of times, but the movie was filmed in like this almost 4:3 the entire time. But the beginning, the monologue where you're seeing all these sites that you're gonna go to and stuff, it's like this 16:9, like beautiful landscape, like stuff that you're seeing. And then as soon as you meet her, the screen shrinks back down, and then it stays there the entire movie. And I just Kaufman, I'm just so like intrigued by the stories that call to him because of you look at Being John Malkovich or Eternal Sunshine of the no,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
Eternal Sunshine, yeah. These like mind bending, like what is reality? What is me? Like what is being me? What makes me me? Just like crazy stuff. So, and he just finds a way time and time again to like make those questions interesting. And there are 4 characters in this movie, 5 kind of.
Yeah.
Well, 3 kind of, but he just like these conversations. The entire first like 45 minutes is them in the car going to the parents, and then there's 45 minutes of them at the parents, and then there's 45 minutes of them leaving the parents. Like that's it. And I don't know. I kept getting so lost in like the visual choices he was making in that car ride, where you're not seeing, in a traditional film, you see shot, reverse shot. You see this person talking, but you see the person he's talking to's shoulder, and then you flip it around and you see that person's shoulder and you see the person who's listening. But in this movie, not only were you, because the frame was so tight, you were just seeing the person talking or, monologuing in their head. And another thing that was really cool was the way it was cut was almost like everything was right on top of each other.
Yeah, it was
So like
such a quick pace.
it's like before they even finish their thought, it's like the next person is speaking, and that does mirror more like real life. But in movies, there's always like there's just more room to breathe.
There's a beat there.
There's more room to breathe. But in this, it's just like she's talking, then he's talking, and then she's thinking something, then he responds almost to her thought, and boom, bam, boom. And so this car ride just becomes, even though it's 45 minutes, you're just like snap, 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 like, and they're bouncing around to different ideas and conversations, and it's just
Big ideas, like dense. Like I'm gonna read 2 minutes of poetry.
Yeah.
Like, or I'm gonna, yeah. I mean, it's wild.
Yeah,
And
wild.
it's interesting that I didn't see the visual cue of it going back down, because I actually look for those now after watching Westworld, and they letterbox it a lot of times, and I was like, oh, maybe this is something, but I didn't notice that it switched over.
Yeah, and I think the only times that it's not in that thing are when they're with the old guy, and then randomly in the middle of the movie when there's that movie within a movie, which I think is also something that Kaufman does quite frequently, is like having these movies inside of movies. So just
Sky, our expert,
mind bending.
what you got for us?
Expert in quotes. I mean, I think it's a pretty perfect movie. I think as a viewer, that car sequence, it is 45 minutes. It's easy to get lost in what they're saying, and you might find it a little boring, because I mean, it really is just banter, and it is like poetry reading. And but when you get to the end and you realize how everything is all connected together, and I might be a little biased because I do enjoy Kaufman quite a bit, but I mean, just how everything connects and everything has a purpose, and how it all relates together, how it's all connected into this giant, complicated web. It's incredible. It's incredible. The only gripe that I think I have with it is I think maybe it could have been maybe 10, 15 minutes shorter.
Yep.
Other than that, though, I think it's pretty flawless,
Can someone, I do have one question about that first driving sequence. Can someone explain to me the meaning or the reasoning of the like pristine swing set to the side that like gets called out?
I can take a shot at it. I mean,
I love it.
It's a Kaufman movie, so there's intentional vagueness and like interpretation, but the whole movie is, and this is more so at his parents' house, but you're getting like these snapshots of his memories, right? So like that's why the parents go from middle age to old to young to whatever, and so like as his mind is slowly deteriorating, just all these images keep popping up. And so that swing set was, I think, something from his childhood, because we see it like 10, 15 times, and it was outside of his parents' old rundown house in the snow, because that was that was the layout of his parents' house, just decrepit and old because of the time that has gone by. So just utterly wild movie. Just one of those. Go ahead.
I think you're spot on, though. Yeah, I think you're right. and for me with that, it also kind of reminded me a lot of Citizen Kane. Like with that element, the end, just the whole entire life journey, it definitely borrowed heavily from Citizen Kane, I think.
I just
Oh my
watched Citizen
god.
Kane. I just watched it for the first time.
That just wow. That's like I just had like a what's the word? Like, moment. Because I'm like, wow, no, it is Citizen Kane.
Yeah,
It
that
truly is Citizen Kane.
that speech at the end when he's on stage and he's in that old man makeup. Yeah, man,
Mhm.
that is Orson Welles right there.
Well, yeah, and it's almost Citizen Kane, but if you had done the movie through the perspective of what's his face? I want to call him Taft, but it's not Taft. Whatever Orson Welles'
Yeah,
character is, it's like if you had done that movie through his perspective instead of through the perspective of people that knew him.
Charlie Kane.
Maybe,
Is
yeah,
it
Charlie
Charlie?
Kane. I think it's Charlie Kane. It's kind of like that. Like if you had an interior look into his mind, like in those moments.
right.
But I mean, it's just it's crazy that you even thought of that. Like I agree with you. It is Citizen Kane, but I didn't like going into it. I knew that you had thought that, but I wouldn't have come up with that myself.
Now the whole
Been
time. Go
watching
ahead,
too
real one.
much.
I see.
No. My question is, so I went in watching this blank. I knew nothing about it, just of the trailer. So did you all know, Sean, you kind of mentioned you referenced the book. Did you guys have any idea going into it? Because I had to, once I finished it, then I sought out articles to kind of figure out what the hell did I just watch.
Yeah, that was mine as well. I just went in blind and like I again kind of like you, except it was through the whole movie, not just the first 10 or 15 minutes. I'm like, I think I like what I'm watching, but I don't know what I'm watching. Like I once I read and got it, I was like, wow, that's great. I even posted, I was like, because I've been rating a lot of movies. I was like, I can't actually rate this because like I didn't get it. Like I was fine and I liked it and it was beautifully shot and everything, but I was like, but I don't get it. And then I did, like you said, some research and read up on like the interpretations. I was like, wow, this is incredible. But for me, that's the one flaw I have is that I mean, I think and again, it's Kaufman. I get that. It's like super high level. It's not for like everyone by any means, but I don't feel like a movie I should have to go and research afterwards. And I got parts of it, but I didn't get the whole thing. So to answer your question, I went in blind, had to do my research after like you. After the research, definitely like Sky said, I mean, 8 or 9 out of 10, honestly. Like I thought it was great. And like it's a movie that now that I know that, it makes me want to go watch it again. Even though I know it's a daunting 2-hour movie with nothing but dialogue the whole time. And I think that's the sign that wow, this is a really good movie that I want to watch that again.
Yeah. No, I would really be interested in reading the screenplay or the book. Just because I mean you got 45 minutes of screen time in a car, right? And I can't imagine reading that dialogue for 45 pages. And if that's a book, I can imagine that that's probably going to go on for maybe 100 pages. So it would be fascinating to read.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do, even though again, like we've said, it's just them sitting in the car. There's so much anticipation building just to getting to the house and meeting the parents. One, and I did watch the trailer, obviously, and so I know the parents are these two incredible actors, and the two main people also incredible actors. Like I thought the overall acting aspect was incredible. But real one, we get to the house. What do you think of that tension building? Because I mean, what, 3 to 5 minutes of like, it felt like 3 to 5 minutes of them just standing there like, oh, the parents are coming down in a minute, even though we've already seen them. And not to mention the creepy, like, dead pig monologue before that as well. Let's not skip through that. But like, what was it like when we finally get to the house for you, real one?
It was awkward when the parents finally did descend down the stairs and like greet him, and he was just very nonchalant, like, leave me alone. Don't touch me. I was like, oh, this is awkward. This is making me tense up. And then the dog appearing, then disappearing, and I was like, okay, what's happening? Once they got to the home is when I perked up a bit. I was like, okay, what's happening right now?
So were you guys trying to piece it together like real one? Were you trying to piece it together as you were watching? Because going into it, I knew that people were saying you'll never guess the ending. You'll never figure it out. So the whole time I'm trying to piece this puzzle together. Were you trying to do that? And what kind of theories did you have going into it?
So there's a reference to, it's in my notes, Baby, It's Cold Outside. I think someone says it at some point, and then I was like, oh, maybe this movie is about that song where she really wants to leave the relationship, but he's pulling her back in. And then the dinner scene happened. I was like, okay, scrap that idea out. That's not what this is about at all. So the entire time I was trying to understand, fit all the puzzle pieces together, but it never came up until I read the articles and I was like, oh, this makes sense. And even calling back to Jansen, that line you mentioned earlier about your thoughts, when you read it just now, and I was like, oh, if I would have listened to that, I would have understood the movie from the beginning.
Listen, I listened to that, and my main theory the whole time was something with time travel. I'm like something, because I mean, at first they do it very subtly. Like, she doesn't go to 100 years old right away. She just
Right.
looks like kind of. I mean, she's obviously dressed differently and in a different time. But I'm like, okay, so I'm like something with time travel, because people are there and then they're not, and then they're But the actual what it was, I did not piece together until the end. But I was trying. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, Sean, what about you?
So, like I said, I wasn't like 100% sure I was going to watch the movie.
Right.
So I just looked it up based off the trailer. I was like, I just want to see what this movie's about. So I kind of got like the outlines of the storyline. Like, I knew the twist ending.
That's
Um,
right.
But
That's right.
I was allowed to kind of like sit back and try and like pick out the pieces of the film. Like, oh, that's alluding to something down the road. Like, and even then, that was like super hard to do because you just get so caught up. Like, that dinner scene was
Yeah.
one of the most awkward and like tension filled moments that I've ever been in. But just the way that Kaufman puts girl or Lucy or whatever her name is in these like single frames by herself.
Mm-hmm.
These characters get these singular frames by them. There's nothing else in the frame but them. Like, then you kind of start thinking, oh, something's going on here. Like, something's going on with her. And the fact that her memory is just like terrible, and she's a completely unreliable narrator. Like, that just kind of, those would hopefully have been something that I kind of pointed out or picked out. But
I love that all the clues as it's going along are so subtle, but if I watched it again, they would be so blatantly apparent, because you don't start
Right.
paying attention to what he's calling her until about the third time, and you're like, wait,
That's
I
a
think
different
he's
name.
that's different. I don't know what he said
Yeah.
before, but that's different. Or her job, like,
God.
are you a poet? Are you
Right.
like an astrophysicist? Like
Right.
these are very different things,
Mhm.
and you don't start noticing those little changes until about halfway through. But then again, if I watched again right now, I'd be like, how did I not notice that?
Right.
So,
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
For the longest time, I thought that the janitor, the old guy, I thought that he was a writer, and this was like a Stranger Than Fiction kind of movie where he's just writing this book, this screenplay. So he's like trying to figure out character. He's trying to figure out what kind of backgrounds they might have, how old these characters are going to be, what jobs they do. He's just struggling. He's like under this big writer's block. I thought that for nearly the entire movie, and I was just very surprised.
I did have him pegged as Jake, because the
Yeah, for
visual
sure.
cues they kept intercutting those two. I was like, okay, he's Jake somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know how or what's happened, but
Mm-hmm.
we got that at least.
Yeah.
And so we go ahead, Sean.
Oh, nothing. I was just going to back to the whole job changing point. Like, in that first car ride, first she hates poetry. She's not one for poems. And then she's telling a poem. And it's just like, I don't know. It was a trip. It was a trip.
Yeah.
And honestly, though, because I know so little about the movie and it's unsettling the whole time, my feelings, especially at the house, and I'm sure that this is the intent, but I'm confusing unsettling for are we about to get a horror movie?
Yes.
Right.
I was like, is something going to jump out? Because one, the two parents are creepy as can be anyway. Now we've got this ominous basement down there. We're talking about dead animals. It's kind of dark anyway. I'm like, are they just going to murder this woman in this house? Because I
Mhm.
feel like that's what we're going to. And spoiler, they did not. But the whole time I'm like, my heart's racing. And that's why I'm perked up, because I'm
Right.
like, there's a lot of tension here about what's in the basement. There's scratches on the door. like you said, people are disappearing and coming back. So I'm
Well-
anticipating like we're going down a scary path here.
The trailer, the pacing, everything about it really does kind of imply horror, and it's listed as being a horror drama,
Okay.
which I don't really agree. But that's fine. And also Tilda Swinton just came off of like Hereditary a few years back, so she's already proven that she has some horror acting,
Toni
in
Collette.
her. Yeah,
Collette.
Toni Collette.
Sorry.
What did I say? I'm sorry.
You said Swinton.
My bad. Toni Collette. I know who she is. She's great. I don't know why I said that.
I'm glad you bring up Hereditary because every time I see Toni Collette in anything, I think of Hereditary.
Yeah.
It's the most terrifying movie I've ever seen. So when I saw her in this scene, like Jansen mentioned, I was like, okay, someone's about to die. It's gonna turn any moment now.
And even once and we'll get to this, but from that point on, the whole time, because then they start driving, back in the snow, and they meet these people at this random
Dairy Queen kind of
Dairy
deal, right?
Queen, essentially, and then they go to the school. I'm like, the whole time, I'm like, he's going to murder her and dump her body, like in the Dairy Queen. Oh no, he's gonna murder her and dump her body in the school. Like the whole time, I'm just like, this woman will be murdered and dumped in the cold snow and not found for years.
Yeah. Can somebody explain the ice cream stop to me? Because because they don't mention that. Hands up. Clearly, the floor is yours, guys.
Sky, go ahead. Go ahead, Sky.
So the way I took it as is those girls represented the types of girls that maybe he met in life, right? So you have one who's like maybe paying attention to him, but he's not really interested, and he's more interested in the other one, but she's not paying any attention to him. So for me, that's kind of how that whole relationship's kind of played out.
I
What
think
about
they,
you, Jansen?
I think they can be that. I think they can represent like when in his youth, the girls, but I took it more as I believe most of those girls are the girls he sees in the high school, like as he's a janitor.
Mm-hmm.
Like in real life, like in the present, he sees them now. And like the girl who's nice to him was actually like being bullied in the school, like she was lagging behind. I think one of the girls might have been one of the people dancing in the play. So I think he takes it as this is his just interpretation of people. How he sees people, just like the girl is his interpretation of his quote unquote, what I see as his like perfect woman. He's shaping her as the story goes along. I see that just as interpretations of other women. I just see him taking them from the present as opposed to the past. So I think we're pretty much saying the same thing, but that's how I saw it. And that's why I really wanted to talk about this movie, because I think all of it is like so up for interpretation.
For sure. Real one, what do you think, man?
No, I agree with you, Sky. I saw it as these are women of his past who, for whatever reason, rejected him. And so after, I think it was when the two girls came up. Anyways, you can see when they're at that Dairy Queen type place, you can see him kind of tense up, like, oh, I don't want to be here. This is bringing back like negative memories. Can we
Absolutely
just get the drinks and go?
Yeah.
Now I saw one interesting thing when I was reading online, because they kept mentioning like the lacquer, or like, they're doing work in the back with, I think it was
Varnish.
lacquer,
Varnish, yeah.
varnish. That's what it is. Again, I thought they're going to murder this woman somehow with varnish. But what I read was maybe in the school, he had to varnish something like very recently. And so he's just like smelling varnish himself, and it's working into his brain, which I'm like, this is so next level of like deep down into the layers. But yeah, so the house, let's wrap up the house, because I think it's important the adults like going back and forth. And
yeah, that was trippy, right? Seeing Toni Collette and can't think of the other guy's name right now. Harry Potter.
I know that's all I think too. David Thewlis.
Seeing them in multiple ages, and then seeing her character pass away, and it was a lot of emotion, confused emotion, but it was very emotional, even though you really had no idea what was really going on. But it was powerful stuff.
And I think during that dinner scene, when all of a sudden she's a painter and she paints landscapes, and she's talking about how she paints like sad scenes and there's no people in it, and the dad's like, well, I can't feel sad unless I see sad people. I wonder if that was Kaufman's way of telling you, like, I'm going to show you stuff that logically doesn't make sense to your brain, but it's going to make you feel emotions. I'm going to make you feel these emotions by the pictures I'm showing you. Like, I
Yeah.
wonder if that was just his way of tipping his hand. Like, I'm going to paint these weird, crazy images of the mom being like overbearing and sick and sad and dying and young and regretful about how she raised her kid and all of these things that someone who may have lost their mom years ago may think about her towards his end days. And like, I'm going to make you feel sad. I'm going to make you feel anxious. I'm going to make you feel like I just want to get out of the situation. I want to go home. Like, I again, I mean, some of my favorite storytelling is where they give you these little nuggets of dialogue that you're not paying attention to, that really just tell you these like big thematic messages that they're trying to convey. So I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think all of his movies, but this one especially, is like so personal. I don't know if he's experienced anything like this, in his life, but for me, it definitely read as something that he put a lot of heart into.
For sure. So eventually, just to kind of wrap that up, we see
Wait, I don't think we've said the big aha moment.
we haven't. So why don't you say it, real one?
It's all in his mind.
You're right. It is. It is. And we get that big clue at the house.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll because and you still I didn't piece it together, but I'm able to get the pieces. Like, I see the pieces. That part's connecting. That the books that are on his shelf are all the different jobs that this woman has, and the paintings that he has are the paintings that she paints, quote unquote, or the poetry book that she recited is his poetry book. So that's where you get those clues, and then it's put into action when we finally move past the Dairy Queen, move past the house, and get to the school where we've been seeing the intercutting janitor the whole time. And I gotta say, this was the one part of the movie I did not love.
Well, when you saw the trash can filled with all the different like Dairy Queen cups, like for
What do you
me
think
that
I'm
was
about to say?
the dance sequence.
No. What do you think I'm about to say my interpretation of all the cups is?
That he's been doing this before over and over
He
again.
has
He's always
murdered
been
this
here.
many people.
Is that what you thought?
Yes, bro. I think he is a murderer the
So
whole
you
time.
thought the whole time, all the way through.
I'm waiting the whole time for him to murder her. I thought it was an excessive amount. I was like, this seems like a lot. But
Real fast. Have you seen Hereditary?
no. And
Real
I
one.
don't
Real
wish
one.
to.
So we're gonna watch Hereditary, and we're gonna bring you back on, and we're gonna talk about
Wait, no, but
Hereditary.
Jansen just said he doesn't like horror movies.
Oh, that's why he's
why
gonna
they
watch
want
it.
me to. That's why
We're gonna
they
do this
want
whole
me to.
Halloween thing.
Brace yourself.
I don't want to. But yes, no, so you sorry, I just had to tell you what my interpretation of all the cups was. But yes, we get to the school, and Sky, you talk about the cups and your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, so like you leave from the Dairy Queen, and then you know she's left in the car, and he's like, "Stay here, I'll be right back." And he goes in, she goes out of the car, she's looking for him, and then she goes up to the school and she sees this trash can, and it's just filled with cups, the cups that they've been drinking, right? And so I think like that was, I mean, there's been clues throughout the whole movie, but that scene I think was when it was like, yeah, they've been here before, like, um, so I think for me that was like the first time where I was like, okay, I kind of figured out what's going on now.
Do you think those were like all his attempts at making the quote unquote like perfect girl in his head, or is that
I think so. I mean,
okay?
it seems like he's been struggling with this for his whole life, right? Dealing with loneliness and trying to figure out his life, and um, so I think that's it. Yeah.
This was the one part of the movie where like I get the dancing part. I get that. I I interpreted it to someone else, I believe, and was like, no, this is what that is. I didn't love that part, and I really, for me, the like animated pig part, and then the last speech, I was like, this we've gone off the rails for me personally, because like we've been so grounded, even though we're doing a lot of weird things, it's been like reality. But now we have a literal animated pig like giving us a little narration, and then Oklahoma musical, which I've never seen Oklahoma, so that's just hard for me to like tie to, and then a big boisterous speech, which I read was the exact speech from A Beautiful Mind, actually, which is very interesting because I love that movie. But like at the end, and again, I get it all conceptually, but I thought it just like took such a turn. It took me out of it, honestly, for a minute. What do you guys think?
I agree. That's when it lost me. Once the dancing scene happened, that's when I went to my room and picked up my phone and started scrolling through Twitter. I was like, all right, I lost it. And then you mentioned Oklahoma. I'm like, this is the second movie or piece that Oklahoma's brought up in. I have to see Oklahoma. It's like prominent in Watchmen. I'm like, okay, Oklahoma, adding it to my list. And then the pig, I was just like, I don't know what this is anymore.
And I think that Kaufman, again, he does this in his movies where you start off with a wild premise that gets progressively more crazy, and then by the end everything has flown off the rails. I don't know if anyone here has seen Being John Malkovich, but that movie is about going into this tiny little secret door where you get to control John Malkovich for like a couple of hours, and then by the end it turns out there's this whole society of people who go into John Malkovich to control him together, and they unify as one. Like, it just gets more and more insane. So I don't know what it means. Maybe this is. I also wonder if this movie is just kind of, because Kaufman, they talk about movies and how they corrupt and how they're pushing their own agendas, and I wonder if this was him just being like, this movie doesn't have an agenda. There's no point. Here's an ending that makes no sense for the movie. It's just here.
I mean,
And now you have to.
Yeah, no, the dance portion I got, that's like him. It's like his own mistakes killing his dreams as like a younger man, because like the janitor comes in and kills the younger him. As with Real One, I got no idea what the pig was. I got no idea. I don't know what they were doing there. And then the speech at the end, I know it's like in a perfect world, this is how it would have ended up for him. But like why the intentionally bad makeup and like why the people from the Dairy Queen, I can't tell you that. I don't know. Maybe Sky knows because he kind of looks like he knows. So if you got the pig,
I mean,
you
I
have
have
the
an
pig?
idea, I guess. I mean, so it's been a month, since I watched it, but I think the pig, it's riddled with parasites, right? And they're like dropping from its body and all that stuff. So I think for me, that was kind of like representative of maybe like depression and just how he's feeling as a person at that time. He's feeling like a parasitic pig who's dying, who has nothing left to live
From
for.
the inside.
Right.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
that's how
All
I
right.
took it. The dance scene, I think you're spot on, Jansen. He had these multiple paths that he could have taken, and then each one of them he ends up failing. He's an F up. I'm not going to cuss, but he messes up so much, and so nothing is ever going to be perfect for him. And then the theater scene, the Oklahoma, I think that ties in the old school makeup, the theatrical makeup that you see is because of the theater scene. He's the custodian, he has the theater, and he has that little moment in there. So he made it into a theatrical performance.
And he's interpreting, I guess, what he sees. He sees bad high school makeup. Like that's how in his head it would be done.
I mean, you've got to think too, that's theater, that's high school theater. You're not going to see any big, awesome makeup. But again, I haven't seen it in a month, but that's kind of if I remember correctly.
For sure.
Does anyone else make this movie other than Kaufman? And as a side part, does anyone else pull off maximum weirdness like Jesse Plemons?
Jesse Plemons is so good.
I just feel like, and I saw, I think it was Joanna Robinson who writes a lot of stuff that I read for one of the big magazines, but she said, let's never forget that Jesse Plemons really started as Landry in Friday Night Lights, which is like the most wholesome character. And now ever since then, ever since Breaking Bad, he's been like the creepy guy, and he plays it incredibly. But I'd love one more wholesome role for him before he goes full
Yeah.
just creeper.
Full
Hang on, I
creep.
gotta show something real fast if
It's
it'll do it.
No, it's keying out.
It's Freddy. Oh,
Oop.
that's close. Yep.
Nope, it's still
Uh,
keying out.
You know what? Hang on. I got this.
Do
Hang
it.
on.
Just do
Yeah,
it.
you're gonna have to just kill your background.
I
For
am.
those that are listening in the podcast format, Sky is trying to show us a Funko Pop right now. He has to disable his Freddy background because he wants to be a cool guy and have a cool virtual background.
Can you see that?
Nice. SS Callister?
Yeah.
SS Callister?
Mhm.
That's the last time he was a wholesome guy.
Was he wholesome there?
As close to, I mean, was he wholesome as Landry? He killed a guy.
He wasn't a creeper. Oh, well, that's a good point. Spoilers.
Spoilers
So
all over.
to kind of wrap up, at least like my interpretation of it, because I know we've talked. Oh, and also we forgot to mention, from what I take from it, he definitely went to his car and just froze to death and killed himself. Correct?
Like
Yeah.
the lamb.
Like the lamb, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So he ends up killing himself. So pretty much from what I gathered is that this whole car ride there and back is made up in his head of a younger version of himself where he could have met a girl back in the day at a game night or a trivial pursuit night, however they want to determine it. He
Yeah.
never went up to this woman. And so therefore, from then on, he's just thought to himself, now that he's a lonely janitor, how that could have gone and how their life could have gone. And he's been forming these stories based on his perceptions of what a woman and his relationship would have been, which is why her name continues to change, her job continues to change, and her interests continue to change because he's trying to see how would it have gone, what would have worked the best. And then, of course, you get to the house, you see the different stages of life. But this all takes place in his head as his last thoughts as he's contemplating killing himself. Is that pretty close to everybody's or?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I got. I think the play on I'm thinking of ending things from the start of the
Genius.
movie being about a relationship to the end of the movie being about killing himself. I mean, I think that's about as clean as it can come off. I don't
Real
know.
One has thoughts. I saw him do
Yeah,
another
Real One.
No. Sean just another whoa. As he said, I'm thinking of ending it. And I was like, oh shoot, yes.
Mhm. Because in that first scene, her eyes get drawn to like some random window, and you see an old man staring down, and it's the janitor. And then it cuts away, and then it cuts back. Yeah, and then it cuts back, and then it's a slightly older Jesse Plemons staring down, and then it cuts away, and
What?
then yeah, go watch
Yeah.
that. Watch the first 10 minutes of the movie again, and pause when they cut to the window. Keep your subtitles on because he's saying a line from that poem that she recites, and then it cuts away and it cuts back, and then it's clearly Jesse Plemons, but when he's like that middle old age and not younger Jesse Plemons.
One of my buddies said he watched it again, like right after he watched it, and he said there are so many pigs spaced throughout the movie that you don't notice the first time.
Did
I
not see
said,
that.
what? I said, what? He said, I promise you watch the second time, you'll see pigs everywhere.
Weird.
So Sean, I know that you asked if there was anyone else that could really make this movie, and I have two that I would love to have seen make a similar movie. Number one, I think we have to say Fincher. I think this has Fincher written all over it.
Very dark.
And then two, Tim Burton. With movies like Big Fish, I think he has the chops for something like this. I mean, it would probably be not as weird, and quirky, but
I don't think it would be as like
Grounded.
not well, just like it would be dark, but not dark in the way like I want to kill myself dark
Right.
in like that ooh creepy, like this is kind of weird dark. Like the darkness in this movie is like a serious deep down like
Drama.
it has
Yeah.
a gravitas to the darkness, when I think
sure.
Tim Burton has more of like a comedic sort of darkness.
he has a
but I agree-
lighter side to
a
the
lighter
darkness.
yeah
Yeah.
But I agree. I think that those are two good choices. I don't know what Fincher would have done because Fincher hates people, so
Right.
who knows what kind of act like just visual action we'd get.
But like Gone Girl mixed with Fight
Mhm.
Club, I mean,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
I see it.
I guess final thoughts, anything that you guys like that stick out that you like. I mean, for me, it's just the way he was able to use the visuals of the tight frames to make you anxious and to like single out characters and the cutting of the film. Like I just thought
Well,
all of
even
that.
the color changes. They're at the
Mhm.
table and like it goes from like blue to pink to
Yeah.
different
And
things.
just all of those like visual cues to like keep you on your toes and keep things moving and keep things interesting, because we're sitting down with this family for 45 minutes at dinner. We're sitting in this car with this weird couple for 45 minutes or an hour and a half, both there and back. We're seeing these weird shots of a janitor. Like, what are those? Like, just all of that stuff, I think, just really helped to build that. Is someone going to get killed? Like, what's the purpose of this? What's happening?
I think for me, it's what Sky said at the start. It's that interconnectivity, that everything's so intentional, and the very real one pointed it out. The line that said near the very first start about a thought is kind of the overall premise, and it all connects all the way through. You guys know how much I love Dark, which, by the way, I'm probably gonna watch it like a fourth time because it's just so interconnected, and that's what I love about it because there's so much thought into it. And I thought this movie did that so incredibly well. That I do look forward to watching it a second time. I gotta say, my wife paid attention to like the last 20-25 minutes when it really went off the rails, and she was like, what did you just watch? And at that point I didn't know, so I was like, I've got to look it up. I don't
know. So I guess, I mean, you already know my thoughts. I think it's wonderful. I think it's great. What I'm looking at now is Oscars, right? Because if we think about the movies that have come out this year, and Oscars are 4 months away, there hasn't really been too much because of COVID, and anything really too notable that I can really think of off the top of my head. And I'm curious, I guess, like how much this film is going to be nominated for, or if it will be. I think it will. I think it'll be in the running for multiple categories. Probably screenplay, best adapted screenplay, maybe best feature, best director. But I really want Toni Collette to finally get an Oscar. I don't know if she has received one, but the fact that she was robbed for several, that I can think of, she needs to win.
Did she do enough in this movie?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. The bar for best supporting actress is pretty low. I mean, or best supporting actor or actress. Like, right. I think pretty much, I don't know. She's in it enough.
I mean, she played 3 different versions of herself.
It's true. Mm-hmm. Real one, final thoughts, my friend?
I am glad. I think this is a movie that warrants talking about it, because the more I talk to you all about it, I'm learning so much more that completely flew over my head. And now I'm thinking about the Oscar race. Will it be nominated for anything, or will the Academy be the Academy?
Is it too out there? Is it too out there? Yeah.
That's what I worry about. I definitely see screenplay. Yeah. I have so much to think about now. So thank you all for that.
No, thank you for coming on, and get in that plug one more time, man. Where can people find your podcast?
Real Connections is wherever you find your favorite podcast. We're on all of the things. Again, we're talking about your favorite movies, but then we have spotlight episodes where we focus on one topic and we just try to figure out why we love what we love.
You guys are very active on Instagram as well. I gotta say, I love the Instagram presence.
Follow the Instagram, Real Connects. It takes a long time to curate
it. So I do have one more thing though, before we wrap up, as a disclaimer for listeners who may not have watched this movie yet. If you are thinking about watching this, start off with something, maybe a different Kaufman movie. If you haven't seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I think that's a great start. It's my personal favorite. It's weird, but you're able to really get on board and get a sense of who he is as a filmmaker and as a writer. And it's a lot easier to get into than this film.
Mm-hmm. I agree. We said it before we started, this isn't a movie, like, I'm not trying to be a snob. Like, this isn't like an average, like, what do you want to watch tonight sort of movie. Like,
right.
You have to go in ready to be provoked and ready to be confused and just kind of holding on the whole time, gritting your way through it.
We had a friend who will remain unnamed who texted me, let's say it was 9 p.m., and said, I'm about to watch that movie. And I said, great. Please tell me what you think about it after, because I had looked it up at this point. I couldn't wait to explain it to him as if I knew more, because I'm like, oh, yeah, I know what's going on.
He started too late. 9 o'clock is too late for this film.
I was just about to ask. I watched it at like 9 a.m.
Listen, I'm not joking. I have the messages. 9:06. Whatever time he started, like 6 minutes later, he said, this is a movie you have to be in the mood for, and I'll watch this later. And I said, I don't blame you. Like, I don't blame you at all. And I'm like, you're absolutely right. But I was like 6 minutes in, he knew this was not like you said, let's just flip on a movie at night.
All right.
Perfect. Well, I think all of us really appreciate you coming on, Real One.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have to do it again. We enjoyed it a lot. We'll be happy to, return the favor, or you're welcome on anytime, my friend. Of course.
Anytime.
Of course, you can find us wherever you find your podcasts as well. Make sure you rate, subscribe, like. We have a YouTube page now. We're going to post this video on the YouTube. Thank you, Sean, for all your hard video work. I appreciate it. And, of course, follow us on Twitter. We have a new Facebook page. You can like that. We've been trying to keep up with that. I think we've been doing an okay job of that. But again, thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week. I think we've got some exciting interviews coming up on the horizon, so those will always be fun. I know Sky's excited. We've got October coming up, baby. And actually, by the time you listen to this, it'll be October, spooky season.
Oh, I'm going to have you watch so much.
Well, there's only 4 episodes that air during October, so that's just count them down.
Yeah, we're gonna do Jansen's Week of Horror. We're gonna have him watch 7 straight.
Again, I appreciate you guys for being here with me, and you guys, of course, Sky, Sean, Real One. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you guys soon.